Have you ever wondered why some people seem to have an extraordinary sense of intuition, a healing touch, or a prophetic word that brings comfort and clarity? What if these are more than just natural abilities, but spiritual gifts given by God for a greater purpose? Today we're diving into a profound message, the spiritual gifts of discernment, healing, and prophecy. These gifts aren't random, they're intentional blessings that God gives to build faith, strengthen others, and bring glory to His name. But how do you know if you've been gifted in these ways? And how do you use them? Many believers feel uncertain about their spiritual gifts or wonder if they have any at all. This uncertainty can lead to feelings of inadequacy or missed opportunities to step into their calling. If you've ever questioned whether God has gifted you uniquely, you're not alone. In fact, there are many documented cases of individuals who discovered their gifts in surprising ways. For example, one believer shared how they felt uncertain during a major life decision, but suddenly experienced an unshakable inner peace and clarity about which path to take. They later realized that this was the Holy Spirit guiding them through the gift of discernment. Another testimony described a woman who, while debating between career options, had an undeniable conviction to pursue ministry, an outcome she never anticipated. These real-life experiences show how God can reveal His gifts in daily life, leading believers to make impactful decisions through His gentle yet clear guidance. John G. Lake was known for his healing ministry, which was marked not just by miracles, but by empowering everyday believers to walk in their spiritual gifts. Born in 1870, Lake was a businessman before dedicating his life to ministry after witnessing miraculous healing in his own family. His healing rooms in Spokane reportedly saw over 100,000 documented cases of healing in just 5 years. A testament to his faith and the spiritual gifts he encouraged others to embrace. He believed that prayer and faith could unleash God's power in the ordinary believer. For example, one man initially doubted his ability to heal, but after attending Lake's teachings and following his guidance, found himself boldly praying for the sick. To his astonishment, people began recovering from serious illnesses through his prayers. His ministry's legacy did not stop there. Under the leadership of his followers, healing rooms and faith movements have spread across the globe. Reports from South Africa, where Lake himself served as a missionary, detail countless healings attributed to prayer and faith. Today, Curry Blake, a leader continuing this legacy through the Divine Healing Technician (DHT) program, has helped equip believers worldwide. Many who previously doubted their own ability to pray for healing have seen powerful breakthroughs, with testimonies of miraculous recoveries from people who had no prior experience with healing prayer. These accounts demonstrate that although we may not initially believe we can heal, God has already given us this gift, waiting to be activated by faith and obedience. Another account tells of Pastor Charles Spurgeon, who initially struggled with overwhelming anxiety and doubted his ability to speak publicly, was transformed by God's call and went on to become one of the most renowned preachers of all time, known for his eloquence and impact on millions. Another inspiring example is Pastor Reinhard Bonnke, who was once hesitant and nervous about speaking publicly, yet after receiving a clear call from God, he stepped boldly into his role as an evangelist and led massive gospel crusades, speaking to millions across Africa and the world. These global testimonies continue to validate the spiritual gifts Lake taught, emphasizing that faith and obedience can lead to miracles in any nation. These true testimonies confirm that the gifts of healing and prophecy often awaken in real people who step out in faith and obedience. Documented reports have shown that individuals who never expected to speak boldly, heal others, or minister have seen these gifts activated through prayer and trust in God. Whether through accounts like those of John G. Lake's healing rooms, or modern examples of transformed evangelists and pastors, the message remains the same. God's gifts are present in those willing to respond, regardless of initial doubts or limitations. Spiritual gifts are like seeds planted within us, but meant to grow and bear fruit. As we delve into these gifts, ask yourself, what is the gift God may be calling me to nurture? How can I step out in faith to cultivate it today? We'd love for you to share in the comments below. Have you ever experienced what felt like a supernatural moment or seen God working in unexpected ways? Share your story so that others can be encouraged by your testimony. Whether it's praying for discernment, offering comfort to someone in need, or sharing an encouraging word, your actions can make a powerful difference. Spiritual gifts are like seeds planted within us and meant to grow and bear fruit. What happens when you don't even realize the seed is there? Could you have missed the signs? Imagine a moment when discernment could have changed everything but you hesitated. Now let's explore 3 key spiritual gifts and how they show up in everyday life. You may even recognize these moments in your own story. 1. Discernment. The gift of discernment allows someone to distinguish between truth and deception, clarity and confusion. This gift often reveals itself when you sense something isn't right or when you feel led to offer wisdom in complex situations. For example, a young man once faced an important career decision and felt torn. After days of prayer, he suddenly experienced a deep clarity that seemed to come from nowhere, leading him to the right choice, which later opened unexpected blessings. Another case describes a mother sensing danger before a trip, deciding to wait and later discovering that her discernment may have saved her family. I believe you may have experienced something similar, perhaps a moment when you felt an inner nudge that you couldn't explain but later realized it guided you to safety or a wise decision. If you have, I can confidently tell you that this is not mere coincidence. It is the Holy Spirit working within you, activating the gift of discernment. This is a reminder to trust that inner guidance and cultivate what others might call intuition, but is undoubtedly God's work within you. 2. Healing. The gift of healing isn't just physical, it can also be emotional and spiritual. God uses those with this gift to bring restoration, peace, and comfort to those in pain. Perhaps you've heard stories of people who, despite feeling unqualified, simply prayed for someone and witnessed profound recovery. One believer shared how they prayed for a colleague struggling with anxiety, and that person later felt an unexplainable sense of peace that lasted for weeks. I believe that you may have experienced something like this too, a time when you comforted someone, and they later told you how your words or prayers brought unexpected calm or healing. If so, that moment was not random. It was God working through you, showing that the gift of healing is alive and active today. Trust those moments. They are a sign of the Holy Spirit using your faith to bring restoration. Here is a moving account of a young nurse who experienced profound healing. She once suffered from debilitating migraines for years and shared how, after receiving prayer during a faith gathering, she felt an immediate and lasting relief that defied medical explanation. The experience strengthened her faith and deepened her trust in God's presence. This is a reminder that healing through prayer and faith is not just a distant possibility, but a present reality available to all who trust in God's power. And remember what I mentioned earlier about John G. Lake. His legacy lives on in stories like this. Proof that God's healing power is real and accessible, often working through ordinary people who step out in faith. As Jesus declared in Luke 10:19, I have given you authority to trample on snakes and scorpions and to overcome all the power of the enemy. Nothing will harm you. And in Mark 16:18 he said, they will place their hands on sick people and they will get well. These scriptures remind us that the authority to heal and the power to restore have been entrusted to us by Christ himself. 3. Prophecy. Prophecy is often misunderstood. It's not about predicting the future, but about speaking God's truth into people's lives, offering clarity, strength, and encouragement during difficult moments. For instance, there have been times when someone has felt prompted to share a verse or a message of comfort that perfectly addressed another person's silent struggle. You may have experienced this too, where someone's words felt so timely, it seemed as though God Himself had sent them to speak to your heart. If you've ever felt that you lack this ability, don't be discouraged. Remember that Jesus promised in John 14:26, "But the Advocate, the Holy Spirit, whom the Father will send in my name, will teach you all things and will remind you of everything I have said to you." You may not realize it. Words today, yesterday, and tomorrow may be influencing others more than you know. This gift of prophecy reveals how deeply God cares and how He uses people to bring hope in moments of confusion. Have you ever experienced someone sharing a word with you that felt divinely timed? Share your experience in the comments. We'd love to hear how God has spoken into your life. If you feel inspired at this very moment, don't hold back. Write down your thoughts, because your words might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. Remember, God often uses us to bring His message to others. These gifts are not given for self-glory, but for service. When you embrace your gift, you become a vessel for God's work in the world. The smallest act of discernment, healing, or prophecy can change someone's life. Maybe it's a quiet prayer for a friend, a word of encouragement to someone who's struggling, or a moment when you offer wisdom that shifts someone's perspective. Every small step matters in God's greater plan. Remember, God's gifts in you are meant to be shared. They can ripple out to transform lives in ways you may never fully see. Spiritual gifts are present in each of us, though they may appear in different ways. Whether your gift is discernment, healing, or prophecy, it was given to you with love and purpose. You may not feel equipped yet, but remember, God does not call the equipped, He equips the called. Seek God's guidance and He will reveal how to use your gifts for His glory. Trust that your journey, your growth, and your quiet acts of faith are already making a difference. The Holy Spirit is working in you, reminding you that you are never alone on this path. Remember, your spiritual gifts are not hidden. They're waiting for you to embrace and share them. Just as a flame may start small before it grows into a guiding light, your gifts are meant to shine brighter as you walk in faith. Trust that God's work in you is significant, even in the simplest moments. If today's message spoke to your heart, share this video with someone who might be searching for their spiritual gifts. Let's build a community that encourages and uplifts one another. And if you're ready to explore more, check out our next video on discovering your spiritual purpose. Thanks for watching.